Oh my god, you guys. You won't believe it. Donald Trump, our president, was just asked if he would leave office if he loses, and he would not commit to it. This is so friggin' scary. We might as well just say goodbye to our democracy, throw our hands up in the air, maybe run around with our hair on fire in circles over and over and over again, screaming until something happens. Because, oh my god, I just can't believe it. Now, if something like my very half hearted imitation there is still your reaction to the latest Trump quip after, I don't know, 5+ years of this, then you really need to seek professional help. You really need to look inward and attempt to understand how it is that you became so emotionally unstable, so excitable, so paranoid, and so given to this kind of nonstop hysterics and theatrics because it can't be healthy for you. Not only is it inadvisable analytically if you at least believe yourself to be somebody who can accurately comprehend the workings of US politics, but it's got to be damaging to your psyche on a deep level. And so you have my best wishes because I can't imagine having lived like you for these past 5 years, however exactly you want to quantify the amount of time that Trump has been on the national political scene. At least, let's say, 4 years. And, I'm almost tired of it from the opposite end of having to go through each time Trump makes one of his comments and parse out the wording of the question he was asked, of the answer he replied with. It's so tedious. In 2016, at least, there was some novelty to it, and it felt like, we're in a different domain of U.S. political communications here, so we have to sort of reorient ourselves, which is kind of interesting in a way, but now it's not interesting from any direction. It's just annoying. But you know what? Here I am on YouTube, and we got to do it. So at his press availability today, somebody asked Trump if he will commit to a peaceful transition of power, win, lose, or draw. Now, I'm not saying Trump is less eager than maybe his predecessors were to go out of his way to exalt the democratic institutions of the United States, and as such would be probably less inclined to say, but of course I will ensure that my successor has all the resources he needs to conduct an orderly transfer of power. I don't think anybody would expect Trump to give an answer like that, but then again, look at how the question was phrased. Win, lose, or draw? If you win, why would you then commit to a transition of power upon your winning? It doesn't even make sense. So naturally he blanches at the question because it's not even well phrased. I mean, I guess there's a way you could elicit from Trump some kind of committal one way or another as to how he would react if he loses. But number one, I don't think he's ever even going to entertain a scenario where he loses at the moment because it would be, I don't know, premature in his mind, or it wouldn't be politically expedient. Whatever the reason, he's just not going to do it. But then you have these bonehead journalists who sit in the White House press room. They think it's so grand and impressive that they've made it there. It's the pinnacle of their careers or whatever. They get to hold the president accountable, by golly. And what do? They can't even formulate a logically coherent question to get the soundbite that they so desperately crave. And naturally, the soundbite comes onto the scene anyway because that's how people react to Trump, no matter what. But this idea now that's being expressed more and more vociferously in Democratic circles and in the media and activist spheres and so forth, that Trump is just not going to relinquish power. He is going to undertake some very ambitiously fascistic strategy to make it so that the election result is delegitimized if he loses. It seems to now almost have become conventional wisdom. There was, of course, a big piece in the Atlantic today, which is the mouthpiece for that kind of commentariat sensibility, laying out a scenario based on all these vagaries and insinuations and anonymous characterizations of stuff about how now it's almost a foregone conclusion that he won't leave office. If you actually read this piece, I don't even recommend reading it, so I'm not going to link to it. I skimmed it. The author, Bart Gelman, likens this threat of Trump not surrendering power to warnings that were sounded in 2001 about Al-Qaeda plotting to launch an attack in the U.S. And the only question, he says, at that time was when and how they would actually launch the attack, not whether it would happen. So he's saying now that this coming looming catastrophe is similar with respect to Trump in the election, because everybody knows supposedly that it's going to happen, meaning that he's going to reject the legitimacy of the election. He's not going to leave office, and it's only a question of, what are the exact details of how that's done. Now, do I doubt necessarily that there could be some contestation of the election outcome? No, I don't doubt that. Of course there could be. We have many states in the country transitioning to a fairly dramatically different voting procedure in a short period of time, having to do with the pandemic and this conversion to vote by mail. So could that give rise to legal challenges? Yeah. But, I don't think anybody necessarily questioned that, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats and Biden potentially challenge certain things related to the vote tabulation or to what ballots are counted as valid and which are discarded, etc. I mean, both campaigns are going to have massive legal teams at each other's throats. But this certitude that Trump is just going to cling to power seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy for a lot of people, in that they have this sick emotional need to project the most frightening possible outcome, which is that the The legitimacy of the election is not recognized. The country descends into civil war, and everything that they prophesied about the existential dangers of Trump, sure enough, comes to pass. And I don't know that the United States ceases to exist. A lot of this is simply their own paranoia, their own angst, their own neuroticism being transposed onto the rest of us because they can't get their emotional or psychological house in order. Therefore, we all need to play along with this fantasy that they're indulged in. And you have some of this on the right as well. I'm sure you could find examples of right-wing commentators who, want to go, play act as these militias or what have you to protest the election outcome if there's fraud in their minds or whatever. But the main propagators of theories along these lines are now the center left and I guess left media, because one can only really speculate, I guess, but guess what these doom and gloom predictions confer to them? It's a sense of elevated historical status. I've talked about this before. It's this vision of you as on the vanguard of history. The only thing standing between total collapse and the implementation of a fascistic state and a reversion back to liberal democracy is, I don't know, people tweeting in all caps and smashing windows, something like that. I mean, you're not going to get a particularly cogent explication from them as to the broader parameters of what they're actually suggesting is the state of affairs. But anyway, that's what we're going to be dealing with for now the next 6 weeks, and it's going to be increasing in ferocity, and I'll try to stick around here to do what I can to guide you through it. Like I mentioned a few times, next month I'm going to go do another one of my trips to an electorally important state or region. Don't have the exact details yet as to where I'm going to be going, but I will keep you apprised. And I should have a piece out, I thought tonight, but I guess maybe tomorrow, that I will do another video in relation to on a somewhat similar theme as this, but with a different angle. So be on the lookout for riots that may or may not be occurring tonight. I know somebody in the chat mentioned they were watching streams from potentially Louisville. So we'll see what happens there. And I will talk to you later. Stay safe, stay cool, blah, 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 blah.